The book, Mental Game of Poker, all right? Info put me on this book. I'm taking my time with it because like I'm only like an hour into it, and everything that this guy talks about is like gold, dude. Everything he's talked about so far, I'm like, holy shit. Like I need that. So I've been really just taking my time, like reading like 20 to 30 minutes every like 3 or 4 days because I want this information to sink in. The biggest thing that they talked about was the concept of inchworm and the 4 stages of learning, which goes in hand with inchworm and how you progress in any skill for any sport, anything. This is how you progress at anything. So I gotta talk about this first. What he talks about is like the 4 stages of learning skill. So at the first stage, you have unconscious incompetence, and I'll explain all these in detail in a second. So you got unconscious incompetence, and you have conscious incompetence, and then you have and then you have conscious competence, and then you have unconscious competence. And so the idea is that when you start off learning something, you're at the first stage. This is where you're unconsciously incompetent. You don't know that you're bad at something. Like you don't know that you're a bad aimer. You don't know that you're a bad IGL. You don't know what you're bad at. You're just bad at it, right? And then you go to the next stage and you realize, oh shoot, I didn't know that I'm supposed to be calling strats as an IGL, or I didn't know I'm supposed to do this when I'm aiming. You realize what you're bad at. You become conscious of what you're incompetent at. That's the second stage. The third stage is when you end up improving on that skill. So let's say it was the aiming thing. You are only good at that skill when you're thinking about it and you're focused on it. So let's say IGLing, you just learned that you're supposed to call strats as an IGL. So you didn't know that before, then you learn that you're supposed to do that, and then you start doing that. And now when you think about it, then you call strats. So you're consciously competent. You're competent at the skill only when you're thinking about it. The last stage is when you don't even have to think about it anymore and you're still competent. And so it's just like, oh, when you get in the game, you don't even think about calling strats. It just comes out. You're unconsciously competent. So these are the 4 stages of learning. And basically what like this is gold here. Like this is what you want for any skill that you have, is to get it all to reach an unconscious competent level, because you don't have to think about it. It doesn't take any brain power. And these go unaffected by tilt. Like things that you have unconsciously competent down, if you're high emotional or tilted, you're stressed out, these things will still work. Like you can still chew gum if you're angry, because you're so unconsciously competent at chewing gum, they don't have to think about it. And a lot of these players, they can still hit crazy shots when they're tilted because their aim is so ingrained in their system that they don't have to think about it at all. So even when they're tilted, they can hit crazy shots. All right. So next thing I have to talk about, the next concept, is the bell curve. And basically this idea is that everyone knows what a bell curve is. This is like if you're to like take the average of something, you have like very little of like something really bad. Your average is going to have most of like the majority of the population of something. And then at the top, you're going to also have like very little population of something good, whatever it was at like the peak of the chart. So when it comes to skills, let's just say this is like skill level in CSGO right here, skill level, right? This is your skill level. We'll just say like this is like face it elo. Like you got like a 100 elo here. You got like 2000 elo here. And basically what the guy was saying is that everyone, if you were to take a game that you played, or like this is about poker, if you take all your games, all your decisions, that every one of your games can be placed out of the past 100 games that you played, like every one of them is going to be placed in this bell curve. You're going to have a lot of really bad games. You're going to have a lot of average games that you played like okay, and you're going to have a lot of like really good games. And basically the idea is that when it comes to like how you perform in a game, you have your A game. Oh shit, this is backwards. You have your A game, your B game, and your C game. And it's like a saying, people are like, oh, I was on my A game that day. That means that you're on point. Like you had everything down. You were playing the best you've ever played. You're going off. And you have your B game. That's just like when you just play averagely. Like you can always play like this. And your C game, which is like the match you guys just saw us play on Nuke when we got 16-3. This is like when you play really bad. And what's it called? So the idea of inchworm is that when it comes to improving at a skill, you want to improve your A game so that the bell curve ends up moving slightly forward. So then now that this is like the new bell curve, so yeah, the idea is that like when you learn something new, you improve your A game, right? So now the bell curve, shit, I have to redo this. 100, 2000. So let's say this is the bell curve. This is your bell curve. If you learn something new, then you improve your A game, so the bell curve X ends up shifting forward, or the front end of the bell curve ends up shifting forward. So now your bell curve looks like this. It's a little bit wider. So on average, you're probably going to play a little bit slightly better. You know, there's a chance you could play better, and there's a chance you could play a lot better. And basically, when you improve your C game, this is improving something that you're making mistakes on. So then this would end up shifting forward. So now your bell curve ends up looking like this, where now it comes further this way. See what I'm saying? So now when you play your very worst, you're not playing at 100 elo anymore. Now you shifted up. Now the very worst that you ever play is going to be 150 elo. Your very best that you'll ever play is like 2050. You see what I'm saying? So what the guy was saying in the book is that when it comes to inchworm, how to improve at something the fastest, you don't want to only learn new things, because then you only improve the front end of your bell curve, and it ends up making a bell curve that looks very, very wide. And this leads to inconsistency. Because if you only improve the front end and you keep on learning new things, then the front end keeps on improving. And you can get like games where you play really good, but this is only when you're on point and you're consciously like competent of all the things that you're learning. And then if you end up only improving your C game, you know, if you only improve your C game and this thing shifts forward, the front end of the bell curve never moves, but the back end of it moves. So if you only improve your C game, you end up getting like really consistent, but you never improve your peak performance. You see what I'm saying? You never really have bad games. You never really have like great games, because you become super consistent. So the idea of the bell curve is that, so the idea of this is that like, if you only improve new things, if you only spend your time practicing to learn new things, you become very inconsistent, because you can only use those new things when you're consciously competent of it and you're at like, you know, mental peak performance. Like you're only going to be able to use that new banana smoke that you saw when you think about it. It's not ingrained yet. And basically the idea is that your C game, when you play your worst, is everything that you have already ingrained, because, you know, you're tilted, you're angry, whatever it is, you're stressed out. So when you play your C game, you're usually just playing at your bare, like everything you have ingrained in you, because you don't have that mental capacity to use all the stuff that you're still learning. If that makes sense. What I was doing wrong is that we would make mistakes in a scrim. And I'm like, oh, it's because we don't know enough. Let's add another setup. And it's like, no, that's not the problem. The problem was we got to fix what was wrong here with the default. Like, you know, we're pushing outside a nuke, and, you know, the CT killed us. And I'm like, oh, we need an outside take to stop that the CT from pushing. It's like, no, we need to just find ways to prevent that from happening with this current default. You know, fix the mistakes instead of adding. Hopefully that makes sense. But this is something I realized I was like messing up with. If you learn too many things and you don't fix mistakes, you become super inconsistent. You could play really good on a good day. You play really bad on a bad day. If you don't learn any new things, you become super consistent, but you just plateau and you play the same forever. Your C game becomes really good. Your A game never improves. And that's why you see these people who like get into Counter-Strike, but they don't like learn new things. They'll get to a certain level. This interim will be moving along. They learn something new. Then they correct a mistake. They learn something new. They correct a mistake. But they stop learning something new. And so the front end of the interim it's stuck right here. And so the back end, you know, they keep on playing same way that they've been playing before. Oh, they fixed another mistake. So now that back end comes here. Oh, they fixed another mistake. Back end comes here now. Oh, they fixed another mistake. But they're never learning anything new. So they just keep on fixing the mistakes of their current level of play. And they become super consistent, but they never improve. Versus people who learn new things, their back end is here. This is the inchworm. Oh, I learned something new. So now it's wider. Oh, I learned something new. Oh, I learned something new. Oh, I learned something new. So you have like a higher potential. Some days you play really good when you can think of all the new things that you learned, but they're never ingrained. So your back end just stays there. Keep on learning something new. And eventually you get to this point where like you're just super crazy inconsistent. And it talks about this point in the book is that people who learn too many new things, they end up just questioning, like they become so inconsistent that they don't know what's going wrong. And so they just question everything and just start throwing away, like, you know, they just question everything, like, what the fuck's wrong with this? Like, and they usually end up quitting the sport. And that's what I think I was getting to that point where I was like, dude, I don't understand this game. Like, I'm learning so many new things. We just keep on losing these teams that just don't even practice. And the problem is just we were never fixing mistakes. And then I was seriously like questioning everything in this game. I was like, am I like a bad IGL? Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I'm learning so many new strats and nothing's working. It's like, that was the problem. That was what was wrong, is I was learning too many things and we weren't fixing what we already had down. And this doesn't have to just apply to teams, just be for individual skill, but this happened to me as an individual, and then also end up happening to our team because I was the IGL in charge of, you know, bringing things to the table. Do you expect the map pool to rotate after the major? Hopefully, man. Fuck Mirage, get that shit out of there.